YouTube link, guys.
So make it hurt. Deliver the word.
MV from the heart of Prince George's County. This is Wednesday, 7 p.m. This is the official county barbershop, and I am your host, Phil Lee, with my co-host,
Nadir Nasheed.
So tonight, and we have to apologize, not our fault, okay? We had technical issues, not our fault. I want to repeat that. And so we're starting just a wee bit late. Got a great show tonight. Our Councilwoman Wala Blegay is going to be back with us. In fact, she's already in the green room. Quite a few things we need to try to get around to. Right now, the talk is this DEI issue and what does it really mean? And if you all have been following us, and I hope you have and continue to do so, you've heard us talk about the Black Wall Street concept. We contend if we had a Black Wall Street concept in place, we wouldn't have the need to be talking about this DEI issue here in Prince George's County. That does not mean that we won't be considerate and compassionate for those in other jurisdictions. But as Grandma once said, you gotta take care of home first. And so we listened to a town hall meeting last night with our state's attorney who's running for county executive, Aisha Braveboy, and she had Pastor Whitlock on there from Reed Temple. And there's a talk of a movement in Prince George's County to get folks who shop here, who do commerce here, to understand if our stores, if our businesses don't support us, then we cannot support them. So there's more to come, but we believe, us here at the barbershop, this is really driving the narrative of there's time for that kind of change in Prince George's County. We have to be more of our own. We can't keep dependent on others to keep us moving on. I think we're seeing different parts of a puzzle of a movement come together. You've got DEI, you've got the issues with 10,000 government workers who live in Prince George's County. Listeners, listen to me. Those 10,000 people who live here pay a whole lot of taxes. If they cannot afford to pay their taxes, our property taxes could triple. But worse than that, these people will lose health insurance. All kinds of different quality of life issues will confront them that they simply were not ready for, prepared for, and honestly should not have to be dealing with. That's a big problem. But our incoming state county executive, she's talking about how she's trying to move as quickly as possible to try to supplement incomes, find these people jobs, hoping that our councilwoman is going to give us some thought, some insight as to what, if anything, the council is doing to try and prepare for this. I do want to say this. I think it's important. I'm a product of the 60s. People are talking about white folks this, white folks that. Let me say, from me, this is not about all white folks. It's not about all Black folks. I think we have a situation here of the oldest fight in the world, good and evil. Taking these people's jobs from them is an evil thing to do. I don't care how you cut it. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care what your political ideologies are. Taking people's jobs away from them simply because you think you can do it, it's wrong. I understand balancing budgets and I understand all of those kinds, but you should not do that on the backs of human beings. This DEI issue, I don't think it's anything more than what I call a BHNW. Don't hire anybody but white people. That is taking America back to a place we don't want to be. We don't. So I don't have as much time as I wanted to. We are still going to be offering free, what are these things called, Gene? Apple AirTags to a limited amount of people, thanks to our partners of the Maryland Vehicle Theft Prevention Council. These AirTags, if you place them in your car in an inconspicuous place, it helps law enforcement to recover your vehicles quickly. Gene, I don't want to go on, even though I could, but let's get the councilwoman in because she just told us that instead of going to Annapolis and raising hell, she decided that she needed to be here with us because last week, and I hope that our platform people at SteamYard can hear me, last week our platform let us down and we had technical problems that we could not overcome. Madam Councilwoman Wala Blegay, thank you for being here again with us. Thank you for having confidence in us. And we know time is limited. Let's try to get you started. What are we doing with this DEI and this $10,000, 10,000 jobs, Walla? What are we going to do here?
Well, I don't know. We're 10,000. We have around close to 40,000 federal workers in the county, and that does not include even our federal contractors. We have around a solid, I think we were looking at the number around 30,000, and then about 7,000, 30,000 civilians, and then around 7,000 that are in the military. So we are really heavily impacted by what's going on at the federal level. I would say this. I would encourage you all to listen to Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett's her statements were right on point.
I
This
listen.
is just
Yeah.
this is the response of angry white men that are frustrated and upset that we have done success despite their efforts to try to really take the rug from under us, and frankly we're going to fight. For the county, I would tell you this: we did have a recent budget hearing. I would want you all to understand we are facing a $200 million budget deficit. In addition, as you know, the state is facing a $3 billion budget deficit. And if you heard the state of the state today, the governor made it clear that the reality is that there are going to be cuts. And honestly, one of the concerns we have is some of the cuts might impact us. If the state cuts, that means the county has to come up with the money. So these are trying times for us. And I would say this: when we're looking at nearly 30,000 federal workers, that means that if people are taking buyouts that cannot afford it, this could lead to mass foreclosures, and that would impact our budget even more, which would mean massive cuts. And right
Councilwoman,
now, we can't afford a cut.
and I apologize. I got busy doing other things today. What were some of the budget cuts that Governor Moore is talking about that you believe would directly affect Prince George's County?
So they didn't give the details. They're looking right now. The budget has been proposed, so it's a proposed budget. But as you can see, there is a lot of cuts to our universities. So University of Maryland, Bowie State is going to feel it. There is even we are concerned about some of the cuts that might impact our health department. Understand a good amount of our health department is funded by the federal government because it's funded by the state. So we need to determine what they're going to keep there. They have cuts all over. One of the cuts, the biggest cut that's impacting us is that the state is going to release the funding that they put for the teachers' pensions, which will require us to fill in the pensions of our teachers. In addition, there's other smaller cuts here and there, but the point is that what we're looking at is that what the state is about to pull, we're going to have to fit. I mean, when you think the teacher's pension, our school system is one of the biggest issues in the county. So for us, if there is a cut in our pension in the pensions for teachers, that means that we got to fulfill it. We got to fulfill that because a pension is a contractual requirement. So we're going to have to fulfill it. So we're going to have to find the money to fulfill it, which means that we might have to cut in other areas.
Oh,
So
so
we are.
that's also interesting because the administration the federal administration is talking about getting rid of the Department of
Exactly.
Education. Now I understand that on the federal level, it's only 13% that they give to public schools. Is the governor concerned or considering cutting the schools' budgets?
Well, what they're going to do is that they're going to lift up some of the requirements, which would require the counties to pay for it. So even though they're lifting it, it's not a cut. They're just moving the responsibility over to us.
I
So that
understand
means that we have to take the money
the
to
government's already
fulfill that.
is the governor prepared to supplement? In other words, my
No,
concern
no,
is all
no. He's making the cut, so we have to fulfill. They're cutting in places that the counties are required to fulfill. So we've got to fulfill that. In addition, I would just add this: we are very concerned about the blueprint because some of the requirements of the blueprint have financial requirements that we cannot fund in addition to funding more things that now the state is going to cut back for. So we have to fulfill. So these are trying times in the middle of fighting Trump and DEI. And DEI, let me just say this. The biggest thing of DEI we need to really look at, our federal contractors are, a lot of them look just like me and you. And they've gotten that because of the efforts to diversify the contractors that work with the federal government. We could even talk about somebody like Tim Adams. I mean, this is a man that's celebrated, but frankly, he has a great office, but he is a black-owned small business that has expanded simply because of federal contracts. So this is an attack on us, and this is an attack on the county. Understand, anytime that we say we are the richest, wealthiest African American county in the country, this is where people, those mega folks, are there reeling in jealousy because they think we don't deserve it. But what they're about to find out is that if they attack us, they're going to attack their services. Understand, as you all remember earlier this week, the Trump administration, and that was last week, they tried to put a pause on funding. And that was, of course, there was an injunction that was approved by the court. So now they don't have that, but they're about to see, like, how much of the communities, not only our communities will suffer, but a good percentage of in Kentucky are on Medicaid and all type of federal funding. They're going to feel the heat here of what happens. They don't think that our government workers deserve it because they think our government workers are just lazy. That's not true. Our federal government workers are working hard, and that is why everyone is benefiting from all the good work that many of our workers, those 30,000 workers, are doing. People are about to find out that cutting their job doesn't add anything. It's going to add more pain to Americans.
So
so. Let
And
me
what
ask.
do we have in place already as, I guess, security if the state was the puts that responsibility on Prince George's County? What do we already have as, like, the what do you call that, the aid box, right?
So we have obviously our savings that we have put in place. The reality is that we are also teetering on losing our AAA bond rating. We're getting to the point that we don't want to go into our safety net to start to fill in for all these various things, because once we do that, we do risk losing our AAA bond rating, because once you go down in savings, and that safety net, they have a requirement of at least 5%. And I think we're like at 8% that we have, so that we are, but once we started getting close to that 5%, we no longer have the good credit of a AAA.
What's
AAA
the
gives us a lot of leeway where we can lose that.
what's
So that's
what's
really
the
the biggest issue, is that what we're going to have to do is, while the state government is cutting, we're going to have to make cuts
so
ourselves.
so what do we how do we move maneuver in that with the amount of debt? Like, what is the percentage of debt that we have?
Well, it's not necessarily that we have reserves. Like, we're not the federal government where we could just increase our increase our budget line, our debt line of that
Yeah,
type of
right.
sort.
But
What
you have a debt, like you have liabilities, right?
Well, we have liabilities. We also have a good amount of reserves, which is how you keep a AAA bond
So,
rating.
but we have a $200 deficit, $200 million
Right. We
deficit.
have, which means that you got to cut. So you don't just take all the money out of your reserves. That means that you
Right.
got to
So
cut your
how
spending.
are we paying that in if people lose their jobs? get what I'm
Well, we don't
saying?
know whether it's going to be job loss yet. Understand, we also don't know what's going to happen with the state budget because it's a proposed budget. So while we are waiting on the proposed, they have a proposed budget, it's got to go through all of the things. So what we're doing is that we actually said that we're going to send a letter to our county delegation, basically asking them to make it clear that we do not want to bear the burden of these cuts, and that we need them to fight to make sure that it's not that we basically come out better than, don't get to the point where we're losing all types of state funding for our
It's,
program. So
it's
our
the
delegation has committed to fighting. But one of the things I will say is that because of that, we are waiting for the proposed budget from the county executive.
what
So the county executive, that's how this starts. Now, if you all don't know, last week the county executive had a budget hearing with to talk about the budget. And of course, I think in my office we're going to be putting together a budget hearing so people can hear about what are the cuts. But what we will do is once we get the proposed budget, that would allow us to actually see what the county executive is planning to cut. In addition, that also they also are waiting for the state, because when we know what's going to happen with the state, that gives us a better idea of our liability. What I will say about the federal issue is that we don't know what the final finality on that too. So we're kind of in limbo when it comes to the budget. The pause on federal funding is pending right now before the courts. And then it's my understanding that when our representatives went and spoke with the federal government, the representatives from the Trump administration said that this was a pause, not a stop, not a complete no. So
So,
meaning that we don't know whether they're going to come back and
it's
say,
the
okay, here's what we're going to fund and here's what we're not going to fund. So we
well,
actually have a lot of pending things that we have to wait for to know what these proposed budgets going to look like. But the council doesn't do the proposed budget; the county executive does. And once we get that, that should come down in about April, or I'm sorry, about March. Or mid-April, that should come down. The proposed budget should come down. And when the proposed budget comes down, that's when we start having hearings so that we can actually see what the proposed budget is and break down each one. And that's when
by
we
the end of
will
the
really
fiscal year.
know. Hmm?
By the end of the fiscal year.
The end of the fiscal year is all the way in July. Is in
So,
June.
so
Is the
right,
end
so
of
you
June.
got to get
But
it done
so
before then,
by the time that we will approve the budget before the fiscal year, which is in June.
because they having elections and everything. She still got to get her team together, and they
Who?
still got to come up with the plan on how they're gonna execute. Right.
So okay, let me go over the process again. The state has proposed their budget. So usually the counties wait till they get to see what's going to happen before they send their proposed budget, because some of the cuts of the state that, has an
Appropriation.
impact on the county. So we are expected to get a proposed budget in within a month or so. And once we get that, that's going to say the county executive is going to let us know this is what we want to cut. And that's when we start going back and forth on what should be cut, whether it makes sense or not. And then that's when we have to vote on the final budget.
Okay, as a member.
while I want to ask a question, and I believe in preventive measures, and listening to the attorney who took part in the state's attorney's town hall last night,
Hmm.
and following up on some of the things you just said,
Hmm.
a lot of these issues, these job issues, are going to end up in federal court. Here's a
Right.
question I have for you. Understanding that, Waller, and understanding that if at all possible, we would not want these people to lose their jobs, is the council given any consideration to maybe putting together, I hate to say a pot of money because you have resources, legal teams that would work with these people pro bono to help them in court? A lot of these people, you can't lose your job and then you have to go out
So
and get an attorney also.
right. So that we don't really need the AFGE. The most of the workforce in the federal government are all part of two unions, AFGE and AFSCME. And actually, I'm going to have a event with them where they are going to talk about sort of what they're doing, and that's for really the most of the line workers. Now, the higher level workers, the SECs and things like that. Some of them are not don't have the same protection. So I used to be a labor and employment attorney before I became a county council member, and so what it is if you're a non-supervisory employee, and even up to a GS-15, typically you will be in the union. In the federal government, you're in the union anyway, whether you pay dues or not. So AFGE and AFSCME, the two biggest unions that represent up to 2 million workers, have already filed a lawsuit.
So,
And
Walla,
they,
with that
Mhm.
being said, Walla, and understanding, and that's a good thing. You just get an opportunity to do some work. But when I look at realities, that upper level, Walla, we can't afford for those people who own these $500,000-600,000 houses to all of a sudden don't have an income. And people don't always understand. You can live in a $600,000 house and still be cash strapped. My question is, I'm hoping that the council will give some consideration to how they can find legal help for all of these people, even those at that level that we think they should have a lot of money, they should be able. That's just not always true. But this county cannot
Right.
afford to lose them.
Right. So what I am considering to do, because we have to see what's going to happen. We can do a federal package to assist those who are laid off for financial support over time, and we can look at something like that. We not necessarily, because some of those people, they might not be able to keep their jobs legally anyway. So that's something that, that's not something that necessarily legal support might not be helpful if you have a certain, for the people who have legal support, because understand you can't just fire a federal worker for the most
Right.
part. Most of the people are non-supervisory, even at high SES. Some of them, you have to be pretty high SES to not be covered. But even when I represented the union, you had people who were, if you were non-supervisory GS-15, which is the highest on the level, we're talking about, I mean, those were most of the workers. Most of the workers are not SES. Most of the workers are regular line workers that start from GS1 to GS-15. That's about, I mean, even in AFGE alone, you're talking about 800,000 workers. And then that doesn't even include AFSCME and some of the other unions. In TEW, that's all the financial, all the ones that work at the financial, like FDIC and all of those. All of those people are in the union. The National Federation of Federal Employees, that's another union. NAIF is a union. So
Okay.
what I'm saying is that there are at least about 10 unions that are representing most of the federal workers that are actively working on litigation to assist them, because it's a process you have to go to fire workers. That's why we're actually letting people know, don't take the deal, don't resign. Don't resign, don't take the deal, because there's no guarantee, there's no funding, there's no guarantee that you will keep your payments until September, as he stated. They just kind of put something together that they said that was more of an Elon Musk thing. Apparently, a lot of the things, the notice that they have was similar to something he did when he was at TikTok. I mean, at X now, or Twitter. So what we're telling people is that this is that's the way of the private sector. The private sector just sends you something, get out of here, all of this, but you can't do that with the government. But a lot of these folks are coming in; they're not government workers. They don't understand government, so they're kind of confused by the process. But the reality is that the unions are going to prevail, because you can't just fire a federal worker like that. So it's going to take time for them to get that.
Fair protection model for the contractors. We've got thousands of contractors.
Right.
Do they get the same protections that the OPM, that the civil servants get?
Unfortunately, they do not. As that it for federal contracting, now there are some protections in federal contract, but it is not as solid as it is for the employees. So for those, that is the big. That's why I've mentioned that's the biggest concern, because some of the federal contractors, if they go through the process, they do have the right to end the contract. Now there are some requirements that are outlined in the regs that you have to address when you're ending contracts and things like that. So that is should also take time too. And hopefully those contractors, and I'm pretty sure a lot of the contractors are looking at lawyers to do that, but it's how long they can last is a question, because some of them, once their contract ends, the federal government has a right to say we're not going to renew it,
Do we have
which is a lot harder to do for a federal employee.
do you think that it's a bigger picture? Like, do we have a economic issue that's just affecting us? And then what percentage in your district is federal employees?
We don't know for per district. We just don't know. We have asked. We did ask on Tuesday. We met with the our head of budget, Dr. Stanley earlier. He actually told me he will get us a list. Now the number I gave you, 30,000, is also not very clear. Like there was kind of different numbers when you look at the debt. The only thing we did get from the Congressional Research Service had a report, and what they said is Congressional District 5, which is Steny Hoyer's district, which also includes Calvert, Charles, Calvert, Charles, and Anne Arundel County. They have 77,000 federal workers, but that, of course, that's not just Prince George's County. And then for Congressional District 4 is 44,000, which is mostly Prince George's County, with a
Well,
exception of Montgomery County. Montgomery County actually has the largest number of federal workers. They have close to 100,000.
so while I guess we're going to all be hopeful that the federal courts, and because these cases will be filed in D.C., I think our federal judges hopefully will be out, come to our rescue. Well, I want to kind of turn just a bit.
Mm-hmm.
This DEI issue, for some of us who've been around for a while, we sense the concern in this because we can remember pushback on the civil rights movement.
Mm-hmm.
And this DEI thing, as far as I'm concerned, being a product of the 60s, that's just that administration saying we want to do away with that civil rights part of you cannot discriminate, you have to have equal right, and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about you all in the council who have to look at, approve businesses, not just developers, but businesses who want to open businesses in commerce here. Is the council giving any thought to how you can ensure that those who open up shops here hire fairly? One of the scenarios we were talking about before we went on air. Everybody, and I don't know how y'all do it. I'm an old timer. I can't spend $7 for a cup of coffee. I'm going to my kitchen and get me a 30-cent cup. But while Starbucks is part of this DEI thing, and then just hypothetical. Walla, how do black people go to Starbucks and spend $7 for a cup of coffee, but everybody behind the counter is white because Starbucks no longer has to hire black people?
Well, that's not the case in our local Starbucks. I know the one in my area, the owner is not the owner, but the manager is black, and so are his employees.
I think even that could change. See,
Right. And I
everything
would
was
and I would say that that's a huge issue. The bigger problem is the Supreme Court. As you all know, there has been a concerted effort at the Supreme Court level to get rid of any race-based affirmative action of those type of things. And because of that, that has made it high where DEI can be something that you can put forth as your own policy, but to legally require it now is almost impossible. So if you notice, for us, one of the things we do with everything is that we actually use county base, right? County base. The reason why we use county base is that if you do it based on a county base, you can do it because it's not based on race. And for us, county base usually means allows us to put more opportunities for our own. We have actually pulled back from actually saying that at minority business, some of those we had to change those because of the recent Supreme Court decisions. Because if you require minority base, then you have a higher level of ability that is going to go to court, and the court will knock it down because of the recent Supreme Court decisions. So we are actually struggling with that. I would say that we would like guidance from some of the civil rights groups to see that, to actually put in place ways that we can get around the Supreme Court decision. But what I will say though, this is a time like if we can sit here and argue about Starbucks and all of those things, but the bigger thing is that we need to support our local small businesses because our local small businesses are the answer. Now, what we could do is create opportunity to them again through county based, because most of the time when we say county based, it oftentimes includes our own brothers and sisters that open up their shops, and that would allow them to actually open up their businesses easier and have more support. So that's one of the things that I asked the new county executives. As you know, I'm supporting Aisha Brave Boy, and that's one of the things that I'm happy that she's committing to, because what I found is that we have a lot of small businesses that are just on the brink. For us, we don't have that. We don't come from that generational wealth where our families could just give us $100,000, like Jeff Bezos, $300,000 from his father to start his business, like Trump, $1 million from his father to start his business. Most of us don't have that. We don't have our families. Some of our families can't give us a dime. So what we need is that we need to provide a support mechanism through a fund to help a lot of our small businesses. I've seen for a lot of our small businesses, especially, I just had a business owner, they own a salad company, and they just closed, right? And they are having financial problem, and we don't have the funds to really fund a lot of these companies that are on the brink. One thing happens and they go down. That's for our small businesses. So what I think that this is reminding us of, instead of us focusing on Target and Starbucks and all this thing, let's focus ourselves on getting these small businesses to be successful. Because if a small business is successful that has similar, we were crying about sweet greens. We don't need sweet greens because we have Spice Black. We
I
had
like that.
Fresh Greens. We had all of these black businesses that were look like us that was there. So we don't have to fight. What does Speak Greens have DEI? We don't even care because they're not in our community. So we
Question.
don't need them if we give our own people the opportunity. We could boycott all these organizations, but after a while, it's hard.
Quick,
People will start going to them.
quick,
So I
quick
think our focus
question,
should
Councilman.
change.
Question,
Yes.
Councilman. So with you have a large percentage of international residents, and then we talk about Black Wall Street. What is a plan, or is there a plan, and how do we create that relationship to support us in that area where maybe an international country, based on maybe percentage, I guess, in Prince George County, we are exchanging resources.
We
Uh,
are looking at that right now. I actually have brought a couple of groups in. We had the Congo come here 3 weeks ago, but there's some issues going on there. I had some Nigerian representatives, but the truth is, actually, these international countries actually want to do businesses with Prince George's County because of the uniqueness, because of the high population of African immigrants, all of those things. But we need to set those things in place. But they also need some help. One of the things that help is, when Trump is attacking these tariffs, AGOA, which was what people use for trade in Africa, was a policy that was put in place that helped encourage African countries to have their businesses trade locally here. So we do need the federal laws make it easier for people to have direct relationships and trade
with
directly with us.
does that relationship, international relationship, how does that support Prince George County residents?
We
How
would
would
be
that,
able to
what
get
categories?
access to, we could get access to a lot, like for instance, Africa's a good example of a place that has a lot of resources there. But a lot of these big conglomerates, a lot of the white people that we know, they have businesses that go there and take the products there. Why can't we be a part of that also? We should be able to go and do trade with them. When it comes to coffee, you talk about coffee, a lot of that starts right in African countries. A lot of why couldn't we get businesses here that have coffee businesses to work directly and get it straight from the people here? Even look at the shea butter that we use, that's made in Ghana. I mean, we already have Dr. Baruch that's going to Ghana to get his shea butter. So we can actually take the products there directly instead of going through Target, instead of going through Walmart, instead of going through
Mhm.
Starbucks.
So,
Starbucks is getting the coffee beans straight from Ethiopia. Why can't we get
how
that?
can we set up those companies, small businesses, where we can create those relationships and channel it right to those local farmers or whatever,
So
right?
that's what I was trying to
That's
do.
in the plan.
Right. So that's been what I've been trying to do, but I do need a county executive that can help me. I will tell you all, we are looking at expanding the sister city relationship with Liberia, and one of the parts of that was agriculture, right? Because they have some of the natural products in Liberia. So connecting the businesses, the people who own or have those, to create co-ops that can send products to people here if they want to trade. So do want to do that, but I would say the hardest part of that is the federal government. That
Mhm.
AGOA, Prosper Africa, a lot of those things help organizations that can do that. We just have to create something that can
When
help do that
and
and
for the
connect the business owners there. So I did have we
job
did.
is that jobs for is that jobs for the residents, Prince George County residents?
Well, it would be opportunities for the business owners who could hire Prince George's County residents. So, for instance, a good example is that when we went to Kenya, we had two doctors that went, and the two doctors went because there was these unique products in Kenya that if they sold them, they could sell them in holistic shops here
Mhm.
in US. And that woman, we connected her with the people here. Now, typically, we will be going to these big conglomerates to get that access to that product. But no, Dr. Levi is now directly connected to Kenya, so she can
Okay,
have the ability to bring it over.
okay.
So those
And we
those are the
spreading this around Prince George's County so we can, like,
right,
everybody has access to the
right.
resource, and we could create a directory, and
Right.
that's how it starts. But
Right, and I mean,
mm,
we would want to give proprietary relationships with the business owners. So like a Dr. Barut is a good example. If he's getting shea butter from Ghana, we want to help him get it, and then other people who sell shea butter to get access to those who are selling it in Ghana, so that they could sell it directly here.
have you already been meeting for this type of movement?
Yes, I've been trying to develop the relationships. What I do need, I cannot do it alone as a council member. I kind of need a county executive or those to kind of help me. Like this is something we can do from the EDC, from
And
the Economic
what
Development
about on the
Corporation.
private side? How does the private side support that? Like,
So what we're trying to
NGOs.
do, right? So what we're trying to do is create the relationships. So
Mm,
so what we want to do is bring you to Ghana, and then we're gonna have, like, for instance, I don't know if you remember, you weren't on my list, sir, but in 2023 I had Ghana come
mm,
here and do a presentation of all of the resources that they have in Ghana that
mm.
they can connect us with,
And
and
we
all
can
you
bring
had to
those
do is get
resources
up
in
there,
here,
huh?
and we bring those resources in here for manufacturing and creating jobs and trades and everything.
Right. So all you needed to do is tell them who you want to be connected to, and they would
Uh,
connect you with that business, with the business there, and you do your own deal
oh
with
yeah,
them.
we can go over there for you, no problem. Not
Right.
being
So,
Because
in
there
being
is,
in
understand,
boom.
other groups are doing this. They are in
Mm,
these other countries getting these resources that we all
mm,
use every day.
right.
Walla,
We
Walla,
need a list.
we kind of
On
been,
the relationship, you need an intro.
Mm.
Walla been bouncing around this just a bit.
I'm so sorry. We
Uh,
got
no,
everywhere,
no,
but
no. Listen, Senator Muse was on last week,
hmm
and he talked about how we in Prince George's County need to begin to produce our own, basically. And I've heard you 3 times now mention, and it didn't go past me, that the things you are talking about doing in terms of creating our own, you have said if you have a county executive that supports what you want to do. Now, I'm not going to be as hesitant as you, but Prince George's County is so tied with the good old boy network
right,
that the things you're talking about doing, I would tell you right off the break, you got the Miller family who owns some of the biggest farms on the coast.
right,
There's no way they're going to want you to do this. And so
right,
I believe that our past 2 county executives out here, I'll try to be nice, were too tied to the good old boy
right,
network. Now, you have voiced your support for Miss Brave Boy. And all things that I see indicate Miss Brave Boy is not afraid of the good old boy network.
right,
Okay. So when you have people like Pastor Whitlock, who to some degree is talking about boycott. Why don't these things all kind of come together? You don't have to go to Starbucks if we have our own coffee shops. You don't have to go to, you understand what I'm saying to you? But you do have to have not just the county executive, but you have to have a council who understands it's time for change. Do you sense, even if you get, and we believe you will get the county executive that you support, what about your colleagues on that council, Wall? And I got to tell you, some of them I got big problems with.
I understand it is a new day. And I would say this with all of the Trump stuff going on, this is where we're asking our people need to kind of stand together. And I think that once you get a county, you need a leader that says this is the direction we're going in. And one thing I realized, not saying that I'm not a leader as a council member, but I'm one council member, and it can zigzag back and forth. But the county executive has a lot of control, and that's what I realized. You got a county executive says we're going in this direction, then we follow. Then at least most people, even if they don't want to, they're going to follow because a county executive is very powerful. And if you don't follow along with them, that means it can impact all the other things you're doing. So, for instance, a good example, like I said, talking about the Good Old Boys Network, you're right. Like, one of the things is realizing that there are resources that we as our own people can develop relationships with people overseas. Imagine that. What power does that give? When
Yeah.
China is all over Africa right now. We, as Prince George's County, we are the wealthiest African American county, and a lot of our relationships are dependent on the federal government. And now the federal government is going to turn on us, and where do we go?
Don't make us go hungry. So, Councilwoman, and I was saying to my colleagues, my co-hosts before we went on the air,
Hmm.
and Gene is his wheelhouse when he talks about Black Wall Street, Chocolate City, and the things you have talked about this evening. They all indicate Prince George's County, you got to learn how to grow your own, sell your own, make your own, and take care of your own. So my question to you, Councilwoman, if an elected official can do this, I'm not sure, but I'm gonna try it anyway. You know, I'll try anything. Will you support such an initiative as something that looks like, and we're saying Black Wall Street simply because we're going back to the history books. I'm a product of DC and Chocolate City. I know how nice it is to be in charge of your own, have your own, grow your own, make your own, sell your own. Would you be in favor of supporting, and we don't exactly know how that support would be, but we do know it would take our new county executive, I think she would be on board, to say to Prince George's County, we need to pull out all stops, everything from bringing in food from other countries, from other states, if you will, to Prince George's County, and we are willing to take on some of our colleagues, if you will, because you got some folks on that council. Walla, they gonna go to the Safeway because they were told to go to the Safeway. You understand? They gonna go to Starbucks because somebody told them they got to go to Starbucks. Are you willing, if you give it some thought, to be behind what it looks like it's becoming a movement? Walla, I'm a product of the 60s. I've seen movements come together before. They
Right.
don't start at one time. Parts and pieces start to fall into place, and before you know it, change is on its way. Are
Right.
you willing to be a part of such a movement?
Yes, I've been waiting for it. I mean, I would say this. We might talk about supporting you have the Starbucks, but we have at least three PJ's coffees now in our district, all owned by, and it's a franchise, but it's owned by our own people who live here. So why don't we go over there? We just had a meet and greet yesterday for Aisha at one of the PJs in Fairwood. That's a couple there that is looking at trying to find ways to engage the community. The quality that comes from our residents fulfills the needs that we've been crying for. We just need to support them. Look, a lot of the reasons why it's like when they're boycotting Target, I'm thinking, how can we have all types of black owned products all over Target. How can we get those out of Target and get
Under
it
one roof.
into one of our own stores that we create so we don't have to go to Target?
Can
We
we
got Bavanti's
can,
Cosmetic. I used to get my cosmetic at Target. We can go to Bavanti's Cosmetic. That is a black owned
can
cosmetic store at Bowie Town Center that is always saying we need more residents. We need to support our own.
can we
Councilwoman,
pipeline?
can I intervene?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
listened to the entire podcast thus far, and I definitely like how you coming across with your energy and things. And so at these town hall meetings, I understand the main purpose is to get votes for Madam Brave Boy, but at the same token, we should be having these type of conversations with our community and suggest, hey, instead of going to this store, then we need to pool our resources and go in the stores that are owned by people that look like us and talk like us. And believe you, I mean, I know I don't have to tell you, it's not a lot of stores anymore in our communities that reflect us. And so we need to get the people
We
on
actually
board with
have
wanting
more
to
than
become more owners as opposed to
right.
being consumers. But we got to get that message out to them.
Right, right,
We
right. And we
do
have to
And,
support the ones that are going, like for hair stores right now. Who owns our hair stores in our community? The
hey,
first black owned hair store is Wincy Williams owned right off Marlboro Pike. We need more people to walk in that door and go there because it's one of our own that owns it. Actually, it's quite a bit. We just need to get the word out. And I
all.
realize,
is the funding
Let me interject here
is there
because
funding?
wait a minute,
Exactly.
this is part of the big problem, Walla. And the first thing I want to ask you is because you seem to know the owner of PJ's is a PJ's Coffee House,
mhm,
and you see if you can get her to agree to come on the show because
he would
this
love to. It's
this
a
leads to the
couple.
next thing. Nobody, when they took away our community newspapers,
Right,
nobody knows about these
right.
places because one, advertising just costs too much money. And so what I like to say to my co-host, let's use our podcast to partner with
Right.
these different places.
Yeah.
And Walla, see
I
you,
could fill you all thing up for weeks with black owners that we
well,
have.
we don't want you to go too far. But
That's fine. This is advertising.
Walla, listen, these, even if we gave them 30 minutes, at least we're giving them the ability to tell people where they are, what they're doing. We can't support something we don't know exists.
Well, I would say this. I think you all should have one of your shows there. You could stream it from there
I
and
don't like
have
coming
it
out, but
there
you
so
know that.
that you could actually get people to walk in and then you could have a live show there. That's
Okay,
what they need.
suppose we do this, Walla. If
That's a
you'll
good
help,
idea.
Walla, because we want you to be a part of it. If we if we can bring the owner of PJ's in
Yes.
on one of our shows,
Hmm.
and then let's ask her because we just can't walk in and set up, and ask her if not next week, week after next, maybe next month, we ask if
They
Walla,
would do it.
after we promote it, Walla, let's give it enough promotion time to
Hmm.
go to PJ's and do a live show. But let's not let it stop there. And see, this is when we talk about the movement and the dear Gene, this is what I was saying to you all before we came on air. Pieces seem to be falling in place by themselves, but the pieces are no good if you don't put them in place. Okay,
Right.
so what Walla is talking about is what we've talked about, but we didn't figure out how to make it happen. Walla, you made that happen.
Hmm.
I was talking about using Starbucks as an example, but it is a good example.
Hmm.
If our people can go to PJ's instead of Starbucks, I believe if they knew PJ's existed, they'd go there.
In
I go to
fact, the
PJ's
crew that
myself.
used to hang out in front of Starbucks all the time, they spend half of their time at PJ's.
Well,
Mhm.
And they do that be to support them because they realize that Michael Harris and Tyra Harris, the owners, are our own people. They live in Bowie.
Quick
so
question.
let's
So
Quick
let me
question.
say,
Question.
well,
Got
let's
a
say,
question. So
Starbucks open in Kettering. Starbucks was reluctant to open here because they said black people would not spend money on the coffee. It was actually Aisha and I who created the first coffee club because we said we're going to show that black
um,
people will come in and spend that money. And we created that morning coffee place where it was like the show Cheers. You never knew who would come and sit down. And Walla, what it did for people like you was every Friday you knew that if you got to Starbucks at 8 o'clock, you would be able to reach out and touch your constituents.
Right.
Why can't we do that same thing for places like PJ? Why
I
can't
think
we?
we can. A lot of people have been supporting it, but they need more support, and they were clear about that yesterday. And that's one of the reasons we hosted the meet and greet there, so that they could get the support. And I mean, Tuesday is a slow night for them, Tuesday and Wednesday. So that's when you do your show and bring everybody there, and let's have some good PJ coffee and beignets while we have a show.
What is a
So tell me
beignet?
this: with been
You ain't been to New
been
Orleans.
in New Orleans. Question: So how is the streamline for small business to get funding? Is there funding programs that they
Very.
need to know about?
It's
Is this
very
clear?
it's very difficult. We have
Right.
very
So how do we
limited
streamline that?
resources. So one of the things is that FSC First is supposed to be one of the. I don't know if you all remember. In November, I had a funding for business event that I put together. So there are two things that we are looking at now, and I don't know how that's going to be impacted with this administration. Number one, FSC First has been the money we give money to FSC First to get funding for businesses. Now we have very limited funding, so there's a lot of requirements. Now the FSC First did get a bunch of money from ARPA, which I don't believe they spent all of it yet. So what I will ask is if you are now, what I did was when I had my event, I sent them a bunch of businesses. So people who wanted it, I told them to go there. So that's one of the funding sources we have in the county, and most people don't know about them. So FSC First doesn't oftentimes get a
FSC.
lot of applications. So one of the things that I decided to do was host events so people can know that it exists, so that they could use it as an opportunity. Now, I would say that what I found too is with our folks, we want to make money, but sometimes we're not prepared. So that's where, again, we need a good county executive, because we need to revamp the Economic Development Corporation, because the Economic Development Corporation needs to be preparing people for business. If they want to start business, I had someone come to my office, they wanted to install EV charging stations and never did it before, didn't know an engineer, didn't know anything. But it's like, God bless their soul, right? They wanted to do it. So there should be somebody that I could send them to at EDC to say, guide this person to how, if you want to be an EV charging business, then you should at least be able to
No,
hire, know
no,
how
no,
to do it.
Quick question: with FSC, you said FSC
FSC First.
for FSC first. Is
Yes.
that
And
a
if you,
program or card number
it's
for
a,
small business?
it's bank, it's the bank.
Okay, it's a bank. So that
Hmm.
the small business will call that bank.
Yeah, so you would go to them and they can do funding for your business. They can do low loans that are, low interest loans. They can do
Low interest
grants. They
loans
have
for
some
small
grant
business. Can you
funding,
build business credit up
all of
there?
them. You said what?
Can you build business credit up there?
Yes. They'll help you with all of that.
Okay.
good. Hold
So
on.
you all can reach out to my office, and my information is W Blegay, my last name, at co.pg.md.us, or Council District 6, and at co.pg.md.us, and we would do an intro to FSC First. Now, I
I
Okay.
think
would say some of the other programs that they have, again, they're not always reliable. A lot of the bank ones that we did see have a large requirements and have very limited funding.
And you have to be
I
in that district. Does small business have to be in your district, or it can be in any
No,
district?
I mean, I'm doing everybody because I realize. So I'm
Okay.
sending it all, but you got to live in the county.
listen.
And you have to live in the county or be wanting to do business in the county. So they're not necessarily going to give you money so you can start
Right.
your business in DC.
Facts. Well, I figured
So,
somewhere in Maryland. I was
well, it should be in Prince George's County.
right. Right. Okay. Okay.
And then the second part is that we also have the Social Innovation Fund. Now, that one is going to be a little longer. How many people? We have a lot of people in tech. And the Social Innovation Fund was supposed to be a way to build funding for small businesses that are in tech in the county. It's under TechCo. And how many people know what TechCo is?
Um.
TechCo is an investment funding arm
Yeah. I try to.
of the state.
That's
And
at the State University
TechCo,
of Maryland. You talking about the innovation technology? Okay.
No. TechCo, look up TechCo. TechCo is an investment arm of the state. They invest in tech businesses. I didn't even know what it
TECO?
was until I got in office.
TECO?
TEDCO.
Oh yeah, tech. Okay, okay, yeah, that's yep. Okay.
Okay, and then we have a Prince George's fund that is a social innovation fund, and that's what I'm working with on right now with TechCo, and that's supposed to be a Prince George's County based fund. So for people, so we are looking for people who are tech businesses in Prince George's County, then reach out.
I tried to use it before. I didn't have
What
much.
happened?
They gave me the runaround over at the University of Maryland.
But it's not connected to University of Maryland. University of
It
Maryland has
was
their own fund.
they had an office over there.
Okay. Was it Malcolm you spoke with?
I can't remember his name. It was I spoke to the vice president of the. This is some years ago. So
Okay, well try it again. Try it with me.
I had to redo all the legal documents and stuff. So.
Got it. But the point is that we don't have a lot of people who know about these organizations.
Right. Exactly.
We don't have, and then
Okay.
what the biggest issue in Prince George's County is a lack of information. Like people don't know we have these things, and to frankly, some of the other places do a better job promoting, like DC. So people go to DC for all these funding for their businesses. Now, unfortunate part is like this is in the middle of the worst time in federal government, so some of these programs might go away.
Is it
So
affected right now? Are those programs you see affection on those programs right now?
we not right now, but I would say TechCo probably get a little less money now that the state is facing a $3 billion budget. We haven't even
Yeah.
put the money into TechCo for our social innovation fund for the county, and then we're supposed to be also getting. I did have a guy that was a VC to come in because we don't have enough VCs in the Black community. So this is about getting VCs to start coming in and investing. But a lot of our VCs are actually in this area. A lot of them are federal contractors.
What are some of the benefits?
So just getting a VC means that we just get an investor
Right,
that will.
venture capitalists, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but what are the benefits of them investing in Prince George County?
How do you think Mark Zuckerberg and all those people got
No,
money?
no, and I'm just
VCs.
asking, was there any type of incentives provided, tax credits or?
Well, no, because VCs usually should be incentivized not by tax credits, but
Okay,
by investing in a project that's going to have a return.
okay.
We run way
So,
over.
I'm so
so
sorry.
Oh no, it's not you, Walla. You start talking Gene's, you get into Gene's wheelhouse, and when you get over there, it's hard to get
Well,
out.
Oh, my
actually,
bad.
where his wheelhouse is what a lot of that's like the big information we need to get out there. So if
So
you have an idea, you need to send it over, and then I'm gonna send it to TechCo and Troy and them so they could take a look at it, and
maybe
then we
we
need them to start going, and then we do need to get VCs in our community because again, if you go to Harvard and you join into that VC, they've got a VC group of billionaires.
so
And that is how Uber
well,
Uber got their funding from there. A lot of these companies got funding through VCs.
maybe what you can do in time is bring together a group, and Gene can come over
Got it. Okay.
and sit down at the table. Let's do that. Listen,
Okay.
we are over time. Gene, you
All
forgot
right.
to play our music, and if you'd have played our music, Walla would have known that. But listen, Walla, we want the owner PJs to come back, and when she or he comes, we'd like for you to come with them.
It's a couple, so I'm gonna talk to them.
And if you come back with them, that would be great. And today, unfortunately, we did have technical difficulties, but we'll block out the whole hour for them because let's figure out what
Can they do it out? Can they do so? Do they need to come on a live? Can't you all do it live?
This
this
is
is.
live, yeah. Yeah, it's live now.
I know, but can we all go to PJ's and do it?
Do it at PJs.
So my suggestion to the team is going to be, Walla, let's first have them on so we get to know them, and then we can arrange. We can arrange to do that at their shop. I would love to do that. I think that if Gene, you and Nadia agree.
Yep.
But let's meet them first, okay, Walla?
Yes, absolutely. And
Because they may
before
not
we
like
log
it.
out, Councilwoman, I want to personally thank you on behalf of all three of us because you've been a wealth of knowledge today.
Walla, it's always good. We want to do everything we can for your district, not just because I live there. We won't get into that. But want to bring you back, get a hold of me, let me know when we can bring the owners of PJs on. We'll get that out to folks, and let's see if we can help these people and prove our point that together, Prince George's County and the DMV, if we take charge of our own, we can take care of our own. Nobody is going to do that for us. This is Phil Lee from the County Barbershop with my host.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Madam Councilwoman,
All right,
for being
I
with us.
see you.
And we'll talk soon. Take care. Gene, take us out.
Appreciate you.
War is not the answer, for only love can conquer hate. You know we've got to find a way to bring some love in here today. Oh, picket lines and picket signs. Don't punish me with brutality. Talk to me so you can see what's going on.